my friend, in this video I'm gonna analyze why I think Blackbird by the Beatles is one of the best chord progressions of all time. There's so much to learn in it, great chromatic lines and voice leading, so let's dive in. The principle is simple. We are in the key of G major, and we're gonna play spread triad voicing. So we play the root note of the chord at the bottom, the third of the chord on top, and in the middle, we're gonna keep the G string open at all times, which is the root note of our key, and it's gonna give a great color to some of the chords, right? So we're gonna start by mapping out the spread triads in the key of G major on all 7 chords with this principle of keeping the G string in the middle. So we have the root chord G, then we have the 2 chord A minor, and that's gonna create a beautiful A minor 7 with the open G. Then the 3 chord is supposed to be a B minor, but by leaving the open G, it just creates an inversion of the root chord, because the notes are B, G, and D. And the root chord has the notes G, B, and D. So it just creates an inversion. Interesting. Then we have the 4 chord C, the 5 chord D, with a beautiful dissonance inside it. Then we have the 6th chord E minor. And then the 7th chord is supposed to be F sharp, half diminished, but there's a nice dissonance inside because of the G. But they don't use it in the song. And then we have G as an octave higher. So if you want to learn your spread triad chord shapes more in details, I have a free course. If you're new on my channel, you can get it. First link in the description box below. It's a 45 minutes free mini course on spread triads with downloadable chord charts and exercises and harmonizations principles. So I'm sure you're gonna love it if that's something new to you. So once again, first link below. So now if they only used diatonic chords like we've seen in the key of G major without any chromatic notes or outside chords, it still would have sounded beautiful like this. Beautiful, but they added so much to it. They added a chromatic bass line that goes like this. And then they throw that chromatic line on the top line after. So when you are able to play so many chromatic notes by staying in the same key and borrowing chords, it's a great sign of great voice leading and mastery of harmony, right? So what's happening here is that we have the C chord, and then we have this weird shape. And this is not a chord that's too complicated. In fact, it's twice the same note. This is a G, and this is a G, and then we have a C sharp at the bottom. So it's only a 2 notes chord. So if we put a C sharp and a G together, it creates a tritone. And a tritone is commonly associated with dominant 7 chords without the root, right? Because if I add an A at the bottom, right, it makes a dominant 7 chord. And in that case, it's an A dominant 7 chord, which resolves well to a D chord. And that's what we call a secondary dominant chord. That's a dominant chord that's targeting another chord that's not the root chord of your key. So D is the 5 chord in my key of G. So now we would call this chord right here a 5 of 5, the dominant chord of the 5 chord. So 5 of 5, that goes to 5. And more than that, they duplicated that same movement. They do the 5 of 6 that goes to the 6. Right? So that the 5 of 6 that resolves to E minor, which is the 6th chord in our G major key. Right? So we have 4, 5 of 5, 5, 5 of 6, 6. So that's not random at all. That's just perfect voice leading that gives you a chromatic bass line. And then what they're going to do is that they're going to borrow a lot of chords from the parallel key. So if we are in the key of G major, they're going to take chords from the key of G minor, and then back to G major, back to G minor, and so on. So if we map out all of the chords of G minor with the open G string when we can, that's going to give us these chords. So all different chords that we can borrow temporarily to get a different sound or to help us get more of that chromatic line going, right? So this is exactly what they do here. We have the E minor chord, which is a 6th chord in G major, but then they push the bass note to E flat, which gives you an E flat major chord, which is the 6th chord in the key of G minor. That's why I use the flats in the Roman numerals to tell the function of the chords, because sometimes it's happening that you have both in the same song, right? So instead of saying the 6th chord in G major and the 6th chord in G minor, I'm going to say the 6th chord and the flat 6th chord. So that we have no ambiguity at all. Because it starts from E flat, which is the flat 6 compared to our root note of G. And then the chromatic action goes to the top string. Really nice. So now we go from C to C minor. So C is the 4 chord in G major and C minor is the 4 chord in G minor. So that's what we call a minor plagal cadence. It's when you play the minor 4 chord in a major key. We hear that a lot. So most of the times the minor 4 resolves to the root chord, which is what's happening here. We go from here to here, which makes sense. It's the inversion of the root chord, right? And then we have these chords with only one finger. So actually this one is an A dominant 7, which is the same as this one, but just in a different position. So that's the 5 of 5 that then goes to the real 5. This is a D dominant 7, but it misses the 3rd of the chord because we keep the open G, right? But it still resolves perfectly to here, right? So we have all of that bass line. And we still feel like we are in the key of G, which is pretty incredible, right? And then they do some more of that same principle of borrowing from the parallel key. So later in the song, another part goes like this. So what's happening here is that we have the F major chord, and this is the flat 7 in the key of G minor. Then we go to E minor, which is the 6th chord in G major. Then we go to D minor, which is the 5th chord in G minor. And then C, which is the 4 chord in G major. And B flat, which is the flat 3 in the key of G minor. Right? So it's like 1 chord in G major, 1 in G minor, 1 G major, G minor, G major, and back and forth like this to give us many different kinds of colors and sounds into the same song. So that's really, really cool. So so much to learn with the chromatic action and voice leading. So once again, if you want to go further to master your spread triads on the fretboard, you can check out my free mini course. It's the first link in the description box. I'm going to give you downloadable chord charts and exercises and many different kinds of modules, and even a lesson on muting techniques so that you can avoid playing the other open strings that you should not play if that's something that you have a hard time doing, to be able to cover Blackbird, which is a beautiful, beautiful song to analyze on guitar. So thank you very much for watching. If it's your first time on my channel, please subscribe. I have a lot more lessons really cool like this, and I'm gonna see you real soon in another video. Until next time, au revoir.